fought between New Delhi and Islamabad in 1948, 1965, 1971, and of course Kargil War in 1999. And on multiple occasions in these last 75 years, both nuclear-armed neighbors have come this close to war. One such instance happened on the night of the 27th of February 2019. It was right after the Balakot airstrikes and the capture of Indian Air Force pilot Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. To get us a ringside view of how a full-blown war was averted back on the night of the 27th of February 2019, I caught up with the then Indian High Commissioner Ajay Bisaria. He's come out with a new book. But first, I want to bring you up to speed with the story recapturing what happened on that fateful night 4 years ago.
Prime Minister of Pakistan was then felt obliged to take a decision because the threat of force was very credible to return the pilot in order not to escalate the situation. The message I think that was going to Pakistan at that point was very clear, that India was going to escalate the situation in case the pilot was not returned.
So here are some of the big takeaways from that interview. I'll be playing out that interview in just a moment. Number one, that Pakistan was worried after the Pulwama attack. Pulwama attack happened on 14th of February 2019. A week or so after that, 10 days after that, we had the Balakot airstrikes. The Pakistan government was completely rattled on the 27th, the morning of the 27th of February, because of the Balakot airstrikes. For the first time, Indian Air Force planes hit targets deep inside Pakistan territory. The Pakistan top brass at that time had received a briefing on the threat of escalation from India if Abhinandan Varthaman, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, was not released. Pakistan had faced a credible threat of India using missiles. There were reports at that time of multiple missiles being pointed in the direction of Pakistan to try and deter them from playing footsie with Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. The message was amplified to Pakistan via diplomats of other nations as well, that if they try something funny, then India will climb the escalation ladder. Imran Khan, who was the Prime Minister of Pakistan at that time, on the night of the 27th, was desperate to speak to Prime Minister Modi. He sent word through the then Pakistan High Commissioner at that time, who reached out to High Commissioner Ajay Bisaria. But Pakistan realized that the threat of force was not a bluff, it was a credible threat, and that if the captured pilot was not released, then India wouldn't hesitate escalating. Pakistan was forced to return Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman because of the credible threat and the fear of that threat of India climbing the escalation ladder. So Ajay Bisaria's contention in that book, and I'll be speaking to him in a moment, is that India's coercive diplomacy on the night of the 27th of February 2019 unnerved Pakistan. The use of force, or at least the threat of use of force, was successfully used to achieve the release of the pilot, Indian Air Force Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. Now, I caught up with Indian High Commissioner Ajay Bisaria, who was there for a very tumultuous 2 years as India's High Commissioner in Islamabad. I caught up with him for this exclusive chat on the events, the tumultuous events that captured his time there. All right, joining us now is the author of this compelling new book. It's called Anger Management, the Troubled Diplomatic Relationship Between India and Pakistan. It indeed has been a troubled relationship over the last 75 years since the founding of both countries. Ajay Bisaria is former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Thank you very much, Mr. Bisaria, for speaking with us. I must say the most compelling part of your book is the final 2 chapters where you talk about your time in Pakistan. It was quite an eventful time. We had the Pulwama attack and then the Balakot airstrikes, and of course culminating with the abrogation of Article 370. I want to start off by asking you about the events of February 27th. That was the day of the Balakot airstrikes. There was a very tense atmosphere between Islamabad and New Delhi. When did you first get news about the capture of the Indian Air Force pilot, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, and what are the conversations that you had in the immediate aftermath of getting that news?
Well, thank you for having me. Initially on February 27th, there was much by way of fog of war. So there wasn't clarity about what exactly was happening, and during the course of the day, there was news that 3 parachutes had dropped in Pakistan with 3 Indian pilots, it was reported, and later reported that there was only 1 and the other 2 were Pakistani, mistaken for Indians. So it was only towards that evening that it became clear that an Indian pilot was missing and in Pakistan custody, and soon confirmed by the videos that were floating on WhatsApp from Pakistan confirming that the pilot Abhinandan was in Pakistani custody. So I think that's where the dynamic of this operation changed, that there was a Balakot, there was a retort, but now it was about getting getting the pilot back from Pakistan, who was really a prisoner of war, who should have been treated under the Geneva Protocols.
So you also detail in the book, so on the evening of the 27th, the night of the 27th, which is a long night, both in Islamabad as well as in New Delhi, you got a call from your Pakistani counterpart seeking a phone call between the leadership in Pakistan and the leadership in India. What did you do when you got that message, and what did you tell the Indian leadership, and what was the message you got back from them?
Well, I did receive that call towards midnight on the 27th. It had already been a long day. I was on the phone all day and in meetings. And at midnight, I get this call from my counterpart, the Pakistani High Commissioner to India, who was then in Islamabad, saying that Prime Minister Imran Khan wanted to speak to Prime Minister Modi. He didn't specify exactly about what. We both possibly guessed it. But I checked up, and I haven't disclosed with whom. I checked up and I got back to them and got back to him and said that, look, our Prime Minister is not available, but if you have any specific message, please feel free to pass it to me. I'll be happy to pass it on to my Prime Minister. I did not get a comeback on that call that night. So that is, we could only guess what the call was about because it didn't actually take place.
But when did you get the sense that, obviously by then we had all known that there was an Indian pilot who was captured. When did you get the sense that the Indian leadership was willing to escalate this if something, God forbid, were to happen to Wing Commander Vartaman?
Well, there were multiple conversations that had started in different capitals and in Delhi with different foreign diplomats making that point to them that India's ask was that the pilot should be returned, else India could escalate the situation. And that message was sent loud and clear across the world, and through multiple channels that I am not necessarily aware of, that message also went in to Pakistan. But what happened later was that Pakistan revealed to foreign diplomats and later to the Indian diplomatic representative, the acting High Commissioner, that it had information about 9 missiles that India had directed towards Pakistan, and it felt this was a dangerous escalation which India should refrain from, and India's position all the time was clear that the pilot should be returned according to international law by a certain deadline, or India would escalate.
Can you just walk us also through the kind of conversations you were having with your colleagues in the MEA, the minister at that time? Because clearly the fact that an Indian pilot was in captivity would have been like a Damocles sword hanging on all your collective heads. Was there any brief that was given to you? What were the conversations that were happening at that time? Because God forbid, if something happened to Wing Commander Vartaman, that would have been, like you said, escalatory, like you detailed in your previous answer. But more than that, would have been mighty embarrassing for the government of the day.
Well, there were conversations taking place at multiple levels, and my brief, of course, was to negotiate with Pakistan and get the pilot back, get him home. And we had a example or a kind of precedent with us, which was the return of another pilot during the 1909 Kargil conflict, Nachiketa, who was returned to India in the course of a few weeks, but not before some grandstanding by Pakistan, wanting to show it to the media and so on. So we had a sort of precedent there, and we had started these negotiations about how to get the pilot back. And there was a lot of conversation going on about also the need to escalate the situation in case Pakistan did not play ball. Because in Pakistan there were some conversations even in the public domain saying they should keep the pilot and negotiate with India or get some of the other benefit out of India.
When did you get the sense that they were likely to release Wing Commander Vartaman? Of course, publicly we all got to know when Imran Khan addressed the Pakistani parliament and he said we're releasing him as a goodwill gesture. But your account seems to give a different picture, that this was no goodwill gesture. This was them releasing Wing Commander Vartaman because they were scared that India would escalate.
Well, we had advance intimation of this possibility from different sources. I don't want to name any, but we were told that this is what Imran Khan would say. He would talk about abjuring terrorism, and he would talk about returning the pilot. And that is exactly what we were expecting in that speech. But until that speech happened, we were not sure that Pakistan would in fact make that statement. But we certainly had advance intimation
and between the speech,
the offer would be made in Imran's speech.
And between the speech and the actual transfer, if I can use that phrase, at the Wagah-Atari border, I think there was a good 24 hours maybe between the speech and the actual, him coming home, the wing commander. How were those intervening hours for you and your team?
Well, tense, because, with Pakistan and given the absence of trust, even after that speech, it wasn't clear what would happen. One deadline was missed. He was supposed to be in by 5 p.m. at Wagah-Atari, but it was close to 9 p.m. when he came. So I think the feeling was that until the man is home, he's not home. So we had quite a few tense moments. I was on the phone continuously with our Defense Minister then, Nirmala Sitharaman, and she was anxious to know exactly what was happening. I was in touch with my team in Islamabad. My air attaché was escorting him, and they were trying to figure out what was happening. So I think it all ended well, but certainly it was a success of India's coercive diplomacy that helped us get that outcome.
I also want to talk about something that you described which happened subsequent to that. I think it was in May or June of 2019, where you said that there was a message that was sent from the highest leadership, the military leadership of Pakistan, about an impending terror attack in Kashmir, which then turned out to be true and the attack got foiled. Did you get the sense that, particularly when General Bajwa was the Chief of Army Staff there, he wanted to mend fences with India, and that he wanted to, not for any altruistic reasons, perhaps for very pragmatic reasons, and perhaps out of compulsion, but he wanted to try and change the course of the relationship? Can you cite some examples if you felt that way?
Well, there were certainly signs. I mean, we didn't want to jump to that conclusion, but there was signs that something was changing, and we were watching those carefully, we were analyzing them, and certainly this move of sharing a piece of intelligence and then escalating it to a political level and calling me up and telling me that this is something that Pakistan is going to do was both a message to India about some change in behavior, but also a message that we read that Pakistan did not want another Pulwama, even by accident, even done by some other terrorist organization. So I think it was a positive sign from our point of view.
And I also do want to talk about the time when, in August of 2019, Article 370 was abrogated. Again, you were immediately called back. I believe you were sent back by Pakistan. What were the nature of the conversations at that time? Were the Pakistanis completely sort of caught out of the blue when Article 370 got abrogated by the Indian Parliament? Can you walk us through the nature of the conversations that you had, particularly with government officials in Pakistan at that time?
Absolutely. I think what I was in, of course, in Islamabad then, and through August, Pakistan was seeing signs and getting worried that there was a large number of troops in the valley in Jammu and Kashmir. The Amarnath Yatra was being called off, and they thought that there would be something happening, but Pakistan was essentially caught by surprise. It shouldn't have been any intelligent analysis would have told it that this was in the manifesto of the BJP, this move, and therefore it should have been anticipated, but it was, the timing of it was unexpected for Pakistan, and they were repeatedly summoning in the Foreign Office foreign diplomats and Western diplomats and telling them that India is up to something, but they didn't quite know what. And when it actually happened, the Indian Parliament took that decision on the 5th of August. I had some inkling because I had visited India a little earlier. But when it did happen, it caught Pakistan by surprise, and the evidence of that is the way the policymakers scrambled in panic immediately in the aftermath. I think that was an indication that there was
Did they summon you, or were there any conversations that you had with your Pakistani counterparts?
Absolutely. So on the 5th of August, I was summoned, and it happened in an interesting way. The Western ambassadors were summoned, and one of them said, look, why don't you speak to the Indian High Commissioner? He's a nice guy, he'll pass the message back home. Tell him directly your concerns. And as a result, at 6 p.m. That day, I was called in by the Foreign Secretary, who was by then my former counterpart, Sohail Mahmood, for a strong démarche and talking about India's siege of Kashmir and so on. And I had to push back at the meeting and point out that Pakistan had no role in this internal matter that India had decided on. So we parted ways at that time, but there was no inkling at that point to me that I would be asked to leave. That happened only a couple of days later, when in Parliament some members of Parliament stood up and said that the Indian High Commission should be closed, the High Commissioner should be sent back, and that's what eventually happened.
So since then, we've not had a full-fledged High Commissioner there, in neither country actually. What is your view on the road ahead? And I'm particularly curious to know, there's going to be elections in Pakistan next month. Nawaz Sharif is back. Imran Khan most certainly will not be contesting in those elections. Is there a way forward for India-Pakistan ties?
Well, I would be cautiously optimistic about the scenario, because in this snakes and ladders game of India-Pakistan relations, new elections in each country are definitely a ladder. The new elections mean a new government, some new thinking, and particularly if it is Nawaz Sharif who's in the mix, there could be some new thinking in Pakistan. With elections in India, I think a window of opportunity would open up, particularly if we go without any major terrorism in this period. And there could be, the right conditions for a perfect storm of being able to talk to each other.
And finally, Mr. Bisaria, you've had a ringside view, particularly in the last few years, of the Modi government and its Pakistan policy. For a longest time, Indian administrations were finding it difficult to deal with this terror on the one hand and talks on the other. And different governments have tried different sort of formulations. But the Modi government took a very hard stand that, look, terror and talks are not going to go hand in hand. And the results of it seem to be paying off to the extent that, the number of major terror attacks in the last 10 years has been significantly less. Let's say if you were to compare to any other previous 10-year period from the late 80s. How would you assess, because that was the biggest thorn in the flesh, that was the biggest problem, at least from New Delhi's point of view. Terrorism was the single biggest problem in this relationship. Everything else could be managed. How would you assess the Modi government's handling of its bilateral relationship with Pakistan?
I think it's been a pragmatic and realistic sort of handling of this situation. And I think the terrorism conundrum has been with us for more than 3 decades.
Correct.
And we didn't really find the vocabulary and the instruments to deal with sub-conventional proxy warfare in a very persuasive way, which dissuaded Pakistan. So I think finally we have, in the last decade, found that answer of being able to deal in a sub-conventional space with terrorism without worrying about escalation to a conventional level, but being prepared for it, and that is exactly what we feel, that an answer can be given to terrorism at the sub-conventional level, and the cost that we could inflict on Pakistan and the Pakistan establishment of using this as an instrument can be heightened to this extent that it becomes a strong disincentive to deploy this instrument in the future. So hopefully we will continue to move in that direction, and Pakistan will see the light of reason and will normalize itself, because it doesn't serve Pakistan's own long-term interests to be using this instrument.
All right, Ajay Bisaria, once again, many congratulations on your new book. It is indeed a fascinating account of the troubled relationship between Islamabad and New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us on CNN News 18. And now the BJP has also reacted to this revelation from Ajay Bisaria. BJP's Amit Malviya has tweeted, and this is part of our Motorola India's Best 5G Smartphones tweet of the day.
Hello, Moto.
This is the tweet. Former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan Ajay Bisaria's latest book, Anger Management, The Troubled Relationship Between India and Pakistan, chronicles how the Imran Khan government back then was spooked by India's coercive diplomacy and agreed to hand over Wing Commander Abhinandan Vartaman. It was fear of Prime Minister Modi that brought the Pakistan establishment to its knees, but some Pakistan apologists in India tried to make it about Imran Khan being some kind of statesman. All right, let me now go across to our guest. Prabhu Dayal is former diplomat and Consul General of India to Karachi. Ali Sarwar Naqvi is former Pakistani diplomat and Executive Director with the Centre for International Strategic Studies. And Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, is also joining us. Let me start with you, Prabhu Dayal. The biggest thorn in the flesh, and I'll take off from the last answer that Mr. Bisaria gave, was this whole problem of dealing with terror. Do you reckon, and what is your assessment as to whether India has found a formulation as to how to deal with this subconventional warfare, this whole thing of bleeding India by 1,000 cuts, which Pakistan has been very successfully employing since 1989 at least? Has India raised the cost of such misadventure on Pakistan that today we are seeing far fewer big-ticket terror attacks in India, certainly in the last 10 years?
Well, I think you're right. India has raised the costs for Pakistan. And this is very evident from Pakistan's own economic condition. Pakistan has been spending recklessly on waging terrorist activities against India. And as a result, Pakistan's own economy has gone bankrupt. The Pakistanis are suffering, and they are cursing their government for wasting their resources. So in a sense, Pakistan's activities have backfired. And we haven't seen any major terrorist attacks coming from the Pakistani side. because I think they have begun to realize that it is too cost heavy, because we have extracted a toll from them every time, and this has begun to weigh very heavily on them.
Okay.
So, in a nutshell, Pakistan perhaps at last realizes that terrorism has backfired and that it is no way forward for it when it comes to dealing with India.
So let me ask Ali Sarwar Naqvi. So one part of it, as Prabhu Dayal articulated, is the military part. The cost of escalation has been raised, that Pakistan is now thinking maybe 100 times over before there is any kind of terror attack that's being fomented from that side of the border. The other part, of course, is the economic aspect, where Pakistan is, its economic woes are so are completely woeful that there is too much else to deal with rather than how to bleed India. So a combination of these factors, and of course, if you look at around the region, Pakistan has very few friends and allies, including, of course, in China. Much of this fanfare of the CPEC and so on, a lot of it has run into rough weather. So in that sense, this sort of perfect storm of conditions that has inflicted Pakistan, particularly in the last 5-6 years or so, do you think that's the reason why, today India does not give as much importance to its bilateral relationship with Pakistan as it used to 10 years ago or 20 years ago? And the reason for that is Pakistan's own standing in the region and in the wider world has come down.
Well, I think, you are saying, you're giving a narrative which is entirely hostile to Pakistan. And that's not correct. Pakistan and India must learn to deal with each other as self-respecting, independent states. And the terrorism problem has been brought under control by strong military action on the part of Pakistan by the Zarbulas, which was the biggest military operation anywhere in the world against terrorists, against terrorism, when more than 200,000 troops were employed. So, there is a counter narrative, there is another point of view, and you have to take into account all that. Now,
no, Mr. Naqvi, the reason I said that, and I don't mean this in any disparaging way, but there used to be a time when India and Pakistan, maybe 30-40 years ago, were near equals, whether it was economically, militarily, and so on. That is not the case today, and therefore the nature of the relationship, as a consequence, has changed. That's the reality.
Yeah, well,
you need to accept that reality.
Problems we do have. Yeah, we do have economic problems. There are many countries in the world which have economic problems. Argentina is a country which suffers from economic problems. Egypt suffers from economic problems. So, yes, there are many countries in the world which have economic difficulties.
No, it's not just economic difficulties. Let me get General Kulkarni to weigh in on this. I think it's economic difficulties is one part of it. There is something called standing in the Committee of Nations, a country's international standing, that over the years for Pakistan has come down substantially for a variety of reasons. I don't want to go into those reasons, but that has contributed to the nature of the relationship between Islamabad and Delhi changing. Today, if you were to ask any Indian, what are the top 3 or 4 bilateral relationships for India, the most consequential ones, it would be US, it would be China, it would be the Arab world. The president of the UAE is a state guest at the Vibrant Gujarat Summit even as we speak right now. So it would be these relationships. I don't think Pakistan would be in the top 5 most important bilateral relationships for India today, and that was not the case 30 years ago.
Zaka, I'll just narrate a small incident because you were interviewing Ajay Bisaria. And we happened to have been a part of this first expulsion which took place from Pakistan in 1963. And after the China war, and after the Shaksam Valley was gifted to China, and that was the first time when we were part of the mission, when we were told to leave Pakistan in 96 hours, and we, along with my father and mother and everybody, came back to India. So it's been a long going on thing. And even at that point of time, like rightly said, there's tremendous amount of warmth amongst the people. But the military still, Ayub Khan, I remember distinctly in commission and various interactions that would take place between the High Commissioner of India and all of them, there was a distinct difference, and there is no denying the fact that today, when I have grown up and when I interact with Pakistani officers on various courses here and there across the world, there is no denying the fact that Pakistan suddenly has turned into hate India to such an extent that you can't believe, Zaka. They have at a point of time, they don't seem to think anything other than hate India, and has suddenly turned out to be a hub of terrorism, which Pakistanis themselves realize. The feeling of Ziaul Haq and subsequently, which came in, that to bleed India with 1,000 cuts has so deep rooted into Pakistan that they seem to be comparing Pakistan with India on all spheres. Pakistan, unfortunately, just carried on with terrorism. India, despite all what was going on along the LOC, carried on doing everything possible to raise its standard of living, trying to get into the Community of Nations, now becoming the fifth largest economy, aiming to becoming the third largest economy. Somewhere down the chain, Pakistanis lost that sheen. Even when I was studying in the school, there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of good friends over there. But over a period of time, that hatred that came into Pakistan, and maybe that Islamic phobia, maybe something that caught on with it, which built in that, and especially, I wish they had gone a little tough with Pakistan in the 80s. At a time that thought with Zia bleeding India with 1,000 cuts in Punjab, had we gone a little tougher with them, they may have not done in Kashmir. But as I said, 63, my father got expelled from there, leaving Pakistan 96 hours, followed thereafter by what happened in 65 war.
Yeah. I think one other factor that's played a critical role in the changed equations, and I want Prabhu Dayal to weigh in on this, is the fact that Article 370 has been abrogated. Of course, Pakistan made a lot of rhetorical noise about it, went to the United Nations, all kinds of speeches Imran Khan had made at that time. But now, it's been 4 years since. Is there a reluctant acceptance that, look, 370 is gone? And forget about the BJP government, any future government in India will not be able to bring 370 back. So therefore, Kashmir is gone.
Well, there are a few related aspects also. People in POK, that is the Pakistani occupied Kashmir, are fully aware that their counterparts living in Indian Kashmir are having a much better quality of life. There is no doubt that life in Jammu and Kashmir has improved hugely, while the life of the people living in POK has deteriorated miserably. So they are aware of this. At the same time, the Pakistanis themselves are beginning to realize that this unending hostility with India is costing them dear. Many Pakistani intellectuals are writing very forcefully in favor of striking a working relationship with India, because frankly, they realize that without this sort of a relationship with India, their country will only go downhill, as indeed it is doing. So, in a nutshell, I think this realization is beginning to dawn on the Pakistani side, that they have to mend fences with India.
Mr. Naqvi, it is, of course, there's pressure on the whole terror question from the FATF. Pakistan was on the grey list, it was on the black list and then the grey list for a number of years. So there was that pressure as well. Mr. Naqvi, there was also, you look at Pakistan's own relationship with the United States, for example. For the longest time, when Trump was in power, and even for a large part of the Biden administration, Pakistan was in the doghouse. The relationship between Washington and Islamabad was not all that good. So the point being that all of this is a consequence of not just economic power. That's just one part. It's military power. It's economic power. It's also the standing of a country in the global community of nations. All of that has changed, and that's the new reality that Pakistan needs to accept. It's not just its changed equation with India. It's its changed equation with the rest of the world.
That is what you think, but that's not correct. In 2014, when Pakistan was supposed to be completely isolated in the region, Pakistan was made a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with India, along with India. And this was a recognition by the two major parts of the region, Russia and China, that Pakistan is an important country which has to be given membership of the SCO. So, I mean, I can discuss this thoroughly whenever you wish to do so. But in brief, the standing of Pakistan, I think, has not gone down. It goes through various ups and downs. We have recently been elected to the UNESCO board, which India has not been. So, these things cannot be taken
No,
to
again, I think you're missing the point of what I'm trying to say, and I'll give General Kulkarni the final word. I mean, look at even as recently as, let's say, 10 years ago, Pakistan's relationship with the Arab world, with Saudi Arabia, with the UAE in particular, was very thick, right? I mean, to the point that leaders of Pakistan, if they had to go in exile after losing power, they would all queue up in Saudi Arabia. Today, the president of UAE is a state guest in Gujarat. He's the chief guest for Vibrant Gujarat. Just a few months back, we had the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia come to India on a standalone bilateral visit. He never visited Pakistan in that visit. So even with the Arab world, with whom Pakistan was thick, the equations have changed. And I guess this is the realization that needs to be drawn.
Absolutely. Doctor, I don't think Pak should be in a state of denial. Pakistan must accept, we would much like Pakistan to be good neighbors to us. There's nothing wrong with it. But a constant state of denial, even with the Financial Action Task Force, you saw for how long Pakistan was struggling to get out of the grey list because of terror funding, money laundering. So the world realizes that everything, Pakistan, much that it was closer to the United States, you saw where Osama bin Laden was. And Pakistan knows what it is, but somehow it has got into the grip of army, and as a result of which, everyone's in a denial mode. No, we are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with Pakistan. I think right now it's much better to accept the reality that in the world order, in a comprehensive national power, all that Pakistan has done best is to hang on to China, now looking to engage again with America. Yes, strategically, it is so located that it is able to engage both China and United States with a view to ensure that its own status the world over remains. But Pakistan by itself, by the way it has been indulging itself in terrorism and has been seen and using terrorism as an instrument of state policy, Pakistan in the world has actually gone down in all spheres, whether it's in the Islamic world, whether it's in the Western world, and Pakistan is finding it extremely difficult to find its feet. And that is what, rather than the state of denial, so much better that as neighbors we do well.
I agree with that sentiment. You wish well on your neighbors, and there's going to be elections in Pakistan, so we wish that there is a dispensation there which realizes this changed equation, the new reality, and therefore sincerely wants to improve its ties with India and, of course, put an end once and for all to the terror tap. But let's see how that plays out. Thank you very much in the meanwhile for joining us. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, the BBMP in Bengaluru is using corporate social responsibility funding, CSR money from different corporates for road maintenance, and that has sparked off a big political storm. Is this mismanagement or is this gross corruption? That is going to be a big debate right on the other side of this quick break.
Hello, Moto.
With his effortless charm and 3 mega blockbusters, the king of Bollywood is coming to Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January 2024, 6 p.m. onwards on CNN News 18. Presented by...
Without a doubt. But as an investor, I see this as just a short-term issue, which ultimately will lead to the stock rebounding as they kind of figure this out and find solutions to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Shares of Boeing fell 7% at midday trading Monday, though were down more earlier, following the temporary grounding of some of the company's best-selling 737 MAX jets by the U.S. aviation regulator. This came after an accident Friday, where a cabin panel ripped off an Alaska Airlines jet while in midair, shortly after takeoff. forcing pilots to return to the airport in Portland, Oregon, where the flight originated. The plane with 171 passengers and 6 crew on board landed safely. Shares of the airline fell in morning trading but were near break-even by midday, while those of Spirit Aerosystems, which makes the plane part in question, were 8% lower at lunchtime, which was better than their performance at the opening bell. The 60-pound part of the fuselage that came off covers an optional exit door. It was recovered on Sunday by a Portland school teacher who found it in his backyard. U.S. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Homendy said. The piece will be thoroughly inspected, she said, though investigators won't have the recording of the communication of pilots from the cockpit voice recorder or CVR to review. Currently, regulations only require that device to record the last 2 hours of communication, and it was too late when it was recovered, renewing attention on an industry call for longer in-flight recordings.
There was a lot going on the flight deck and on the plane. It's a very chaotic event. The circuit breaker for the CVR was not pulled. The maintenance team went out to get it, but it was right at about the 2-hour mark, and it was completely overwritten. At 2 hours, it re-records over it, so we have nothing from the CVR.
This incident is just the latest in a series of problems Boeing has had with its MAX jets. Crashes in 2018 and 2019 killed nearly 350 people and led to the MAX's worldwide grounding for 20 months. In this instance, Boeing confirmed Monday it had already taken steps to get the grounded planes back in the air. It has shared instructions with airlines about inspecting the grounded fleet, which is a key requirement of regulators before the planes can resume service.
Menemukan salah satu dari 2 black box yang terpasang.
Welcome back. Shifting focus to debate 2, the Bengaluru Civic Authority has decided to use CSR funds or corporate social responsibility funds for the maintenance of 12 roads. This covers about 13 odd kilometers right in the heart of the city. Now, the BBMP says it wants these private companies to maintain the quality of these roads, and in return, the firms will get dedicated space for their branding. Now, these firms will have to fix the footpath interlocks wherever it's necessary. They will also have to paint the cycle lanes, they have to maintain ornamental plants, repair broken drain slabs, replace defunct street lights, and of course beautify the roads. The BBMP will be responsible for asphalting the roads and painting the main carriageway. The Civic Authority has said this is an efficient way to maintain roads along with private players, but the BJP has launched a political attack. They're saying this is gross mismanagement, as corporate cooperation for CSR initiatives should be for things like education, health, not for building roads. That is the job of the government. It has accused the Siddaramaiah government of emptying the state coffers with over-ambitious guarantee schemes, put together all of which will cost the exchequer more than 50,000 crores annually. Civic activists have also questioned the government seeking records of public spending, accusing the city authorities of massive corruption. The big question then remains, is the pursuit of efficiency, or at least seemingly in a private-public partnership, has the civic management and the authorities responsible for civic management in the IT capital been exposed yet again?
We have only sought some partnership with the corporates with respect to TenderSURE road. We will anyway take up the maintenance. We have enough and more funds for maintenance of the roads.
Karnataka government under Siddaramaiah and DK Shivakumar has got bankrupt. They do not have any money for even the smallest developmental activity.
We urge the BBMP to fix the systems and processes in place first, fix the accountability in their own organization, and that should take care of itself. There is enough tax money we think that Bangalore is paying.
Problem is that because of all the commissions the contractors are paying, they are making poor roads. Correct thing would be to see that there is no corruption.
All right, so let's go straight across to our face-off tonight. Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress, is joining us. So Prashant GS is spokesperson of the BJP. Aishwarya Mahadev, nowhere in the country is the whole idea of maintaining roads, maintaining drain slabs, repair of roads, nowhere is it outsourced to corporates or to any other entities. It's the job of the government. It's what people pay taxes for. Why then is the BBMP not doing its basic duty of maintaining roads in the city?
Good evening, Zaka. I want to give you a little bit of context into this, because to spin it as saying, we don't have the money, so we're asking for CSR this way, is something that I do not believe is exactly what the idea is. For example, the Karnataka government under the Deputy Chief Minister has a flagship program where they've asked for 2,500 crores of CSR for education projects where companies don't just give money, but they maintain the schools themselves. This we believe is a dynamic CSR where you are part of the community, you are part of giving back, and we've also seen far better sort of results that way. And for example, and let's make it also very clear, because the BJP has run this entire story of saying we're asking corporates to come and fill in the potholes, a large pothole which was the legacy of the BJP here. We're not. We're asking for the footpaths, as in, for example, in Bangalore, Church Street, Museum Road, TenderSURE roads that have a lot of community presence, that have a lot of commercial presence, that also become hubs of, let's say, clogging in city traffic if you do not maintain it. We're asking corporate companies to come in, take a part, have the return of being part of the community, and also have ads.
Aishwarya, isn't that the job of the government? Isn't that the job of the civic corporation? What are people in the city paying taxes for? There are all kinds of local taxes that are collected. That is for building and maintenance and upkeep of roads. If you're going to outsource that function, you talked about, how educational institutions, That's for education and for health. Yes, that is the whole idea behind corporate social responsibility. That's why it's called CSR, not corporate infrastructure responsibility. Infrastructure responsibility is that of the state.
Zaka, we are not outsourcing the primary job of the BBMP, which is to maintain the road and to ensure that it is something that traffic can move on, ensure that there are no potholes. We are talking about the sides, whether it is beautification, whether it is greenery, whether it is the pavements. We believe that this is a novel initiative which will make people also feel far more responsible.
So here is what the corporates have to do, right? They have to maintain footpaths and cycle lanes. They have to maintain drain slabs. If drain slabs are removed, then it's the job of the corporate to fix that drain slab. They have to maintain and fix street lights. Firms will also have to maintain plants and beautify roads. The BBMP's only job would be to asphalt the roads, basically tar the roads, and to paint the carriageways. GS Prashant, this seems like 80% of the job of the BBMP when it comes to maintenance of roads seems to be given to somebody else. The BBMP is saying that, look, this is not our job, and if we can get people to do this job better and for more efficient monies, then why not?
See, the vacuum of leadership in Congress is now to blame, because if they're now justifying this move, saying that it is community participation, people coming forward, this is definitely no community participation. This is blatant diversion of responsibility and accountability on part of the government to say corporate should come and do this. No, you are supposed to do the basic maintenance. If any extra beautification is required, that the corporate should do, which is generally outside their offices or in the lanes nearby to their office. They will also be allotted a branding space, etc., so that it's more of a win-win situation. Now, it's a classic situation wherein they are being, I believe, forced to do this for reasons best known to Congress, and then say that it is a public-private initiative. No. This is nothing but shifting of responsibility to a private corporate authorities to say you do everything, and the chief minister and deputy chief minister who say that brand Bangalore other things would go there and stand and click photographs. What sort of governance is Karnataka government doing it? This is nothing but
and one of the examples that is being cited, one of the examples, Prashant, that's being cited is that in Electronic City, for example, which is a large part of the IT hub of Bengaluru, the civic corporation does not do all of this maintenance stuff. It's been done by a consortium of corporates who've come together. There is a civic body which is a consortium of all of these corporates, the various IT companies that have big offices there, and they take care of the maintenance. And from whatever I have seen over the last many years, despite large parts of the city getting rained out during monsoon season, Electronic City is one part of the city which never gets flooded out because it's maintained by corporates. Why can't that example be followed in other parts is the question being asked.
No, Zaka, one thing is fine. Why Electronic City came in, how Electronic City started, if they are doing it, fine, but that's a primary responsibility of the government to do it. Just because an action done by the private agencies are far better does not mean government absolves itself of responsibility and say, look, you are doing a better job than what we are supposed to do, and therefore you continue to do the job. How fair is it to expect the corporates to do it when the primary responsibility of government is being diverted? Is it fair? Just because somebody is doing a good job, which is not their primary responsibility, they are doing it more on a voluntary basis as a corporate responsibility measure.
So let me ask Aishwarya Mahadev, the BJP's political contention is also that all of this is happening because basically the coffers, the state coffers are empty. You've made all kinds of promises to the people of Karnataka with these 5 guarantees. The total estimated cost for these 5 guarantees is upwards of 50,000 crores, 52,000 crores. For Griha Lakshmi, 30,000 crores. For Annabhagya, 10,000 crores. For Shakti scheme, 4,000 crores. For Griha Jyoti, 13,000 crores. For Yuva Nidhi, 2,500 crores. If a large part of the state's budget and its revenues have to be earmarked for these 5 guarantees, then how do you expect the government agencies, the civic authorities, the corporation to maintain roads, which is their primary function? This is the political attack on you.
Zaka, first thing, the budget size is much larger than what the guarantees cost us, and the BJP has nothing else to say except these guarantees. But let me tell you that the BJP is very happy sitting in opposition because of a few things. It's very easy for them to come and attack us, but let me tell you the reality of what we inherited, right? January 17th of 2023, there was a heartbreaking report in all the newspapers that said that the BBMP had gone broke. that their treasury or the khazana that they had no money whatsoever. They had approached 3 banks to basically try and mortgage BBMP properties in order to get money. There was loss of accounting. There was over 4,000 crores in a BDA scam. You saw over 6,000 crores owed to all contractors who basically were up in arms. And we inherited a BBMP that had absolutely... I didn't interrupt.
One second. Prashant, once again, I'll come to you. Prashant, once again, I'll come to you.
I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, let her finish. But Aishwarya, if there are corruption, if there is scams, go after those scams.
Exactly.
You can't just but you can't. That's not what you're doing. You are outsourcing the job of the BBMP.
Let me answer. Zaka, you cannot conflate a CSR initiative that way. For example, the education is the state's primary responsibility. Why do all states across the country have the highest funding from CSR for education initiatives? Is that a state abdicating responsibility?
No, but that's a social responsibility. That is a social responsibility. Health, education are social responsibilities. Building roads is not a social responsibility.
Nobody's again.
It is the
Nobody's
primary duty of the government.
I have not interrupted you. I do not understand. 1 second. Zaka, again, road safety and also awareness is a part of this, and Mr. Tushar Girinath has clarified on that. But let me complete. Are you talking about did we take action? Did we probe? Yes, we probed more than 230 tenders in Bangalore alone to look and see if there was any deficiency, if there was any corruption, and we cancelled those tenders. Mr. Tushar Girinath has also spoken about a situation where we cannot also pay and payment for tenders because the institution itself was broke, so we're infusing funds. So we're saying we believe it is an innovative way.
GS Prashant, you ran the BBMP from 2018 till last year. Where is the money? I mean, look at the stories that we saw over the last 5-6 years, whether it is potholed roads, frothing lakes, or even for that matter, when rain happens. We all saw what happened in September of 2022, where the entire outer ring road areas were flooded out. So it's not like you've done a terrific job.
Zaka, in the last 10 years, we have been in power for 3.5 years. And Congress has been in power for 6.5 years. Be that as it may, in terms of diverting people's minds and abdicating responsibility now, look at the electrocution deaths happening in Bangalore when a young mother and a child had to die because of negligence of BBMP and the government. They are wanted to abdicate. Then tomorrow they'll come back and say maintenance of these live wires is also under private-public partnership. Therefore, if at all people lose lives, which should never happen, they will abdicate responsibility and say the private agency was supposed to maintain it, therefore blame them. They're wanting to get away from all sorts of responsibilities and accountability and only want to enjoy power.
No. Prashant, are you saying there were no pothole deaths when BJP was in power? I can enumerate any number of cases of pothole deaths.
No. Zaka, we are not talking about pothole deaths. We are talking about electrocution death of a young mother and a child. A live wire being negligently left on the footpath where people were charged to death.
There were instances of cars being submerged inside tunnels that happened 2 years ago. So, Zaka, there have been as many deaths.
I am not shying away from that. I am also answering that. Look, as Bangalore has grown manifold in the last 2 decades, there have been infrastructure problems. It's not that BJP created it or Congress created, but Congress, when it's come to the power saying that we are going to give good governance, now can't abdicate responsibility to say everything will be done by the private agencies.
Aishwarya, I'll give you the final word. You came in promising that you're going to change the corrupt regime, the 40% Sarkara Commission and all of that, Commission Sarkara and all of that. What you are basically doing, as GS Prashant says, is abdicating your responsibility, letting private... so tomorrow the private companies can say, why should we vote for government? Let's vote for corporates, no?
Zaka, I think that is again a point of absurdity of pushing a nominal statement to something so far. But I will conclude by saying this. They spoke about good governance. My government has come in. Not only have we asked for an inquiry and probe into all the 40% commission charges, we've also instituted safeguards to prevent paper leaks from actually harming aspirants, which I believe is a new thing. We believe that the Lokayukta is also active. We believe the courts also are very active, and good governance is being ensured so much so that if you go to the ground or even as something as simple as Shakti, you realize that the people also know the work that...
Can you tell our viewers how many potholes the BBMP has fixed in the last 8 months since you've been in power? Please. No, one second, Prashant. I'm asking a question.
They've withdrawn case against DK Shivkumar.
Yeah.
They have withdrawn the consent to CBI.
That's a political matter. I'm talking about a civic matter. Please enumerate for our viewers how many potholes the BBMP has filled in the last 8 months since the Congress came to power?
Saka, I think the number is directly proportional to the number of deaths inversely rather, to the number of deaths that you've seen. The BBMP on a war footing basis has gone on to clear potholes all across the city. And even with the rains that happened, the sort of response that we had was far more in time, was far more so that there's no damage.
We'll leave that judgment to Bangaloreans. I'm not sure what has changed, at least from a civic point of view and from a quality of life point of view in the last 6 months in the city of Bengaluru. But this sort of initiative of trying to get private agencies, private entities, corporates to move some of their social responsibility funds to maintaining roads and street lights and slab drains on roads and footpaths. Well, depending on which point of view you look at it, is it a novel idea or is it just simply outsourcing what is the primary job of a civic authority? Meanwhile, as we wrap up, we're less than 24 hours away from India's biggest awards night. CNN News 18's marquee event, Indian of the Year 2023, gets underway from 6 p.m. onwards tomorrow, Wednesday, the 10th of January. And the Badshah of Bollywood is going to be gracing the occasion. It's not just his box office successes, and he's had a pretty phenomenal 2023 with 2,000 crore plus box office smashers in Pathaan and Jawan. But it's also Shah Rukh Khan's philanthropic endeavors that will be showcased. Will he be crowned Indian of the Year 2023? Tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. to find out. Shah Rukh Khan's persona goes far beyond his iconic real image. His real avatar is what has left an indelible mark in the hearts and souls of thousands who he helps every day. At the forefront of his charitable initiatives stands the Mir Foundation, a non-profit organization that he founded. This foundation is dedicated to empowering women and aiding acid attack survivors, providing them with medical support, rehabilitation, and vocational training. Beyond gender-based causes, Shah Rukh Khan has also been a steadfast supporter of child healthcare, actively participating in campaigns against child malnutrition and contributing to the construction of pediatric hospitals. He's also been instrumental in promoting child literacy. Shah Rukh Khan was honored with UNESCO's Pyramid Konmani Award in 2011 for his support of children's education and the World Economic Forum's Crystal Award in 2018 for advocating women and children's rights in India. Shah Rukh Khan has extended his financial assistance to those battling cancer and contributing to cancer research. His generosity extends to disaster relief efforts where he has consistently provided aid to communities affected by natural disasters. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Shah Rukh Khan demonstrated leadership by contributing significantly to various relief funds, facilitating the supply of medical equipment and using his platform to raise awareness. Through these diverse philanthropic initiatives, Shah Rukh Khan exemplifies a commitment to making a tangible difference in the lives of those in need.
With his effortless charm and 3 mega blockbusters, the king of Bollywood is coming to Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January 2024, 6 p.m. onwards on CNN News 18. Co-presented by JK Tyre Ranger Series. Stay wild at heart. Co-powered by Mankind Pharma, serving life, and AU Small Finance Bank. Badlav humse hai.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We begin with the Maldives again. The diplomatic storm continues. Indian social media is still full of angry posts and hashtags. The Maldivian president is in China looking to boost ties with them. Yesterday we told you why this is a poor policy and how it could backfire. Tonight we look at the geopolitics of it. Why is China cultivating the Maldives? Meanwhile, there's tension brewing in the other end of Asia too, again courtesy China. There was a nationwide alert in Taiwan today, the fear of an attack from Beijing. We'll tell you what happened.